Most people think that the most successful people in the world know exactly how they're going to succeed. But what if I told you that most of the time, it's actually a complete accident? And that's exactly what happened with these two brothers. Meet Mike and Matty, founders of Cajun Koi Academy, one of the most popular educational YouTube channels in the world. Coming from an immigrant family, the value of hard work was instilled in them from a young age. Seeing their parents work day in, day out to provide for them motivated them every day to be better. This encouragement led to huge academic success, and they chose the pathway of becoming doctors, something which made their parents very proud. Whilst working in the field, however, they realized something that would change their life.
And so he was working in the hospital, and what he found difficult was, as a clinician, as a doctor, he had to teach his patients, and he had to re-explain himself 10, 20, 30 times a day. And so he got fed up with it. He's like, why don't I just make some videos and then I can just show everybody and, you know, kind of build that leverage of building something once and then distributing it multiple times. But it kind of just started there. We just made videos for fun. Over time, we realized that you can connect with people who also aren't your patients. And so YouTube was just like kind of opened my eyes to the idea that, wow, you can actually, using content as a platform, you could actually reach a lot of people.
And this was a spark of something that would change their lives forever. Over the course of the coming years, they would make videos educating the world on common medical questions. This came with a lot of success, and eventually they would pivot into productivity and study tips. We've seen this before with countless other YouTubers who also start off as doctors, like Ali Abdaal or EasyA. And I wanted to know exactly why this phenomenon occurs.
I don't know. I think if I had to pinpoint it, I think if you wanted to go to medical school and become a doctor, we love a good challenge. And to me, like, a business or entrepreneurship is like the ultimate challenge that you can tackle in life. And so it's like, wow, this is like a big challenge and it's so fun to try to figure it out. I love puzzles, I love games. I think doctors are also like that. Like, we love learning things, we love like solving complicated problems. If there was someone who like kind of inspired us, I would say you did mention Ali. He was a big inspiration because we were kind of doing YouTube as he was blowing up on YouTube, and he was documenting his journey about things. And then we saw that he quit medicine, and we're like, oh, there is
we gotta quit too.
Kind of, yeah. Honestly, it's like, it was funny. It's like, oh, like it can be done. What a lot of people need, for any young people out there, is like they just need to see proof and case studies that it's possible.
And around this time, their YouTube channel started to skyrocket, and they found themselves at a crossroad.
The fork in the road for me was I had just graduated medical school, and the fork was, should I do residency or should I go all in on entrepreneurship? Whereas my brother was already working full time, since he's 5 years older than me. And so a lot of it actually rested on him. It's like, are you able to step away from something that you spent so much time, effort, and now are making, you know, doctor salary with, to basically start from scratch and build something new. I had loans. I was just in debt. I had invested 10 years of my life into this thing, and then now I'm not going to use it. And so for me, it was a much scarier decision. But again, it's just like that hope at the end of it. It's like, would I regret not trying this versus just going to medicine?
And with no plan B, their channel took off. With the content doing so well, Mike and Matty realized that they could turn this into a real business. Noticing that many of their viewers were just looking to grow as people themselves, they took the step of creating Cajun Koi Academy, an online hub where you can go to access courses, meet like-minded people, and figure out how to get more productive. So, okay, at this point, you've decided, I'm not going to go into residency, and you come up with this name, Cajun Koi. How did you come up with a name?
Yeah, this is something that we haven't actually talked about a lot, which is funny since it was our name for so long. So the name actually is centered around the word koi. The Cajun and the Academy part was kind of just like last minute additions that were like, okay, let's just also do that to make it more fun. There's a story in Chinese folklore called the Tale of the Dragon Gate, I think it's the Dragon Gate. But basically the story is that there's a whole bunch of koi fish. They all swim upstream, this like fierce river. Swimming upstream, as you might know, is very difficult. Like, you're fighting against the waves and the currents and stuff. The story goes that if a koi fish is able to swim upstream and swim up this waterfall, then it can transform into a dragon. In our community, what we believe is like the people who are willing to go against the grain, who are able to like persevere through hardship, do what's required, you know, more than just their best, they will be the ones who transform the world by creating businesses or products and services that inspire and help people. At the core of like what Koi is like, we want to build a community of people who want to go against the grain, who want to push through challenges, and they get that transformation, right? Become a dragon and change people's lives and stuff. And so that's where like Koi comes from. Like, that's kind of the backbone of what our community is. But Cajun really just came from the idea that it's also big in our community, which is individualism and like self-discovery. And so the Cajun is just like an adjective that describes like what kind of koi, what kind of innovator do you want to be? It's just that idea of like everyone's individual and like you can find your own way to swim up that river.
And what their success teaches us is super, super valuable. We've seen it with pretty much every single successful person, whether it's Mr. Beast or Cristiano Ronaldo. And it's that with hard work, absolutely anything is possible, even if you're a student who struggles to learn. And this is what they teach their students.
Everything is learnable. You know, all the skills that you want are learnable. You just have to also lean into what your strengths are. I would never be a basketball player. I could try and play basketball as much as I want. I can get as good as I possibly could at it, but my ceiling for basketball is capped by things outside of my control. But up to a certain point, everything is trainable. Lean into what you're really good at, and then for everything else, just train the skills to get good enough at them. Because everything else is trainable to a certain extent, and then just lean into what you're really good at. That's how you're going to stand out compared to everybody else.
Maybe it's down a little bit to the way that we're taught in school. Looking back to my school experience, I always wanted to be great at every subject, and they push you to be great at every subject, right? If you give up on being good at maths, then it's like you're a bad student, right? But nobody looks at an entrepreneur and says, you're bad at marketing, so therefore you're a bad entrepreneur. You could be great at the tech, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you lean into, exactly as you said.
And this brings us back to the school system. Naturally, we're taught every subject and have to put a ton of effort into the things that we don't even enjoy. Conditions like grade point averages bring unnecessary stress to students who work extra hard on a subject that they don't even enjoy, rather than learning the correct techniques to focus on what they truly love. But Matty and Mike came up with something to combat that. They created StudyQuest, a tool to learn how to learn, something which will help you throughout school and also throughout life.
StudyQuest is the program that we host at Koi right now. It's all centered around the idea of helping people learn a meta skill, which is learning how to learn. Because unfortunately in school, we don't learn how to learn, which is the most ironic thing in the world because we have to know how to learn in order to perform well and get good grades. If you learn how to learn, then everything else after that becomes easier because the rest of life is just learning. You're gonna have to learn how to build a business if you want to. You're gonna have to learn how to do marketing, learn how to do sales. If you have a relationship, you're gonna have to learn how to navigate that. You're gonna have to learn a whole bunch of things. And I think a lot of students go through school fixated on things like grades, fixated on things like, you know, what's my grade point average gonna be, that they think about learning as a means to an end. Where it's like, once I finish school, like I'm done learning. Where in the reality is like, once you finish school, like your learning begins, you know, like now you're learning how to adult.
The real world.
Right, so a lot of things have changed. So I always make this joke to my students too. It's like, I'm not a student anymore, but I probably study more than I did before. And I was in medical school, I studied a lot. And so it's just like, the types of things that you're learning how to do just change. Learning is all about understanding how your brain actually wants to take in information. So oftentimes, like in school, we don't learn about this. Like we're just given lectures and textbooks, and you know, our teachers just stand up there and talk to us for an hour. And no one ever thought to question is like, is that actually the best way for us to learn this information? StudyQuest is like really based around looking at all the neuroscience, looking at like the psychology research, looking at data, having like a simple understanding of how your brain actually wants to learn something, and then framing that for how you learn something. So if I was to learn something completely brand new, like Web3, I think about learning in a cycle. So there's like 3 stages of learning. The first one I call is construct. So you want to construct kind of an outline of what you're gonna learn first. And so the analogy I use here is like, if I went to a grocery store, for example, like when's the last time you went to the grocery store? You just walked in and just walked around the aisles, and like you probably just spent so long there because you had no like clear idea of where everything was, what I'm looking for even. And so construct is all about how can I get like a map of this grocery store so I at least like understand from a big picture level like what is in it, where things are, and then from there I move on to the next step, which is of the cycle, which is called connect. So connect is all about now filling in that puzzle that you just created. Like you have an outline, and now you're just like filling it in, connecting the dots between things. And then the last step of the cycle, which is challenge, is now you're testing yourself and making sure that everything that you learned actually makes sense. My favorite part of challenge, which I think is most useful, work on a project. One of the best ways to learn something because it gives you a deliverable. You know, you have a reason to actually use the knowledge that you're learning to get a result. If you don't have a project, if you don't have any like thing you're working towards, then what is the point of what you're learning? Like it's not gonna really click. And so having that goal and then delivering something from that goal.
The story of Cajun Koi tells us all to be students, no matter what stage of life we're at, because learning should never stop, and many, many great things will come of that. If you're interested in learning more about what these 2 brothers are doing, I've left the link in the description. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, make sure that you press the subscribe button.